Welcome to another episode of DD on the Spot. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Johnson. And before we get into it with our guest here today, I'd like to remind everyone that if you enjoy this content, to please give a like and subscribe down below. I'd greatly appreciate it. We have Marilyn Yee on the podcast. She's coming to us from a warmer climate. I'm not even going to get into it, everyone, because it's already just, depressing me enough as it is, just seeing the sun coming right into her while I'm, staring out into a dark, cold abyss. But yeah, she competed in the amateur Olympia this last year, and I mean, if you couldn't tell, she's a bodybuilder. I mean, some of these guests like you, I mean, like you can tell. Like it's like you can't really hide it anymore. Like it's pretty obvious. But yeah, she's on here to share her health and fitness journey and discuss all things health and fitness. But most importantly, she's our current guest. Marilyn, thank you so much for coming on.
Sure. Thanks for having me.
Well, I normally ask what the weather's like, but like I told you before, that's just not going to happen because I'm already sad enough as it is. But to get things started, why don't you just give us your backstory on what inspired and motivated you to start working out and how that led to where you're currently at right now?
Well, this I get asked a lot because I don't drive, and every time I hop on Uber ride, and the driver asks me the same question, so I have a lot of practice. oh, so I was anorexic by the end of 17. That was 2008, and then it took me 8 months to start eating again to adapt. Like at the time, my body was adapted to not eating until the point my organs start failing. And then I was seeing a nutritionist, and she said if I don't eat, I would die. So, but at the time, I thought the hard work I put in, I can't just let it go to waste. So I had to start eating, but I was worried about rebound, so I started weight training. So I thought if I don't eat, I would like if I don't train, I would gain weight. I was so worried about the rebound, so I trained really hard, like with cardio and intensity, and that's how I got into bodybuilding.
Did you have any idea about the sport of bodybuilding before you got into it? Because for so many people, it's kind of an unknown lifestyle where a lot of people just have these myths about it or they don't really know too much about it.
No, like just like everyone else, I didn't know much about bodybuilding. I just did what I thought was right, and I learned it throughout the process. And I had coaches along the way to help me.
And I mean, I love to talk genetics on this podcast because everyone always has that one body part that really, really takes off that they don't have to train as much. And they have that one body part that just drags behind it. They have to train to oblivion. What was one body part when you were getting started that really, really took off? And what's been one body part that you just had to drag behind this entire journey?
I'd say my legs. Well, because I think it's structure wise. I'm like short. I'm not really tall. I'm 5'3". I'm not really short either. I'm like average height. I'm really stocky. My limbs are shorter. So I knew at the time, I knew like big muscle group with like if I train them hard, it's gonna help me burn more calories. So I went really hard on big muscle group, like my chest, my back, and my quad. My quad popped really quick. It just took off really, really fast.
What's been one that you've been dragging behind?
I still say to this day it would be my back. It's not like I don't know how to train them. It's like I'm also a powerlifter, so like I don't like having like really big back because I don't want to have hard time grabbing the ball like a lot of people do. So I would say I purposely not to train them too hard, but now it's in proportion because it's been so many years, and now I need to work on.
Whereas I'm the exact opposite of you, where I'm 6'3", and my back is the one thing that's really took off for me. Whereas my legs don't even get me started. I've made the joke I could inject pure muscle into my legs, and they're not going to take off. It's just, it's not going to happen. Like it's just ridiculous. But you mentioned too that you're a powerlifter, and I was going to bring it up. I mean, some people that I talk to, it's a very few amount, especially in the bodybuilding community, that also do powerlifting because they are somewhat different lifestyles. How do you sort of mix and match those two? Because there aren't a lot of bodybuilders that do powerlifting as well.
There aren't, and I do admire that those that do. And I know a few female bodybuilder that used to be a full-time powerlifter. I don't know a lot that actually do both at the same time. And it's hard. It's hard. It's a complete different lifestyle. The diet part and the intensity for powerlifting, obviously it's a lot heavier than bodybuilding training. So you can't train 5, 6 days a week for that. You need to have rest day in order to bring up the intensity on the training day for powerlifting.
With powerlifting too, though, I mean, one of the biggest things I think separates it is that in powerlifting, I mean, you're lifting a lot of heavy stuff. Whereas bodybuilding, most people don't understand. For a lot of bodybuilders, it's not about the weights. It's about, you know, the time under tension, the control, just sort of building that muscle. Is that ever been a struggle for you mixing those two together? Because they're vastly different when it comes to working out.
Definitely, it's very different training wise, but for me, in my case, a little different because I started bodybuilding in 2009, right? And I always had bodybuilding coaches, and none of them taught me how to move big weights. I knew like moving big weights is dangerous if you don't have the technique and knowledge for it. But I knew barbell movement was going to help me gain size and more thickness. And machine work just didn't do the work. Machine would be more for the details. So I figured like I wasn't financially able to hire two coaches at the same time. Like bodybuilding coach is expensive, you know. So I figured it out myself. I started barbell back squat, bench, and deadlift without anybody told me how, and I've gotten really comfortable with it. I wouldn't say I was good at it. I gotten really comfortable with it, but my form was still shit. And until 2 years ago, I finally made a decision to sign up for powerlifting and powerlifting training. And I did my first powerlifting meet last year, which is 2021, and my second meet was 2022, and I took overall both times.
Wait, you started all those lifts by yourself without knowing anything?
No, I'm just
Wow.
structurally built
Yeah.
for it. I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, there definitely is that type too, and I see that all the time, especially in my gym. It's the, you know, it's the very stocky build where, yeah, that's powerlifting heaven, you know, right there. But I mean, both of these sports are so much more of a mental journey than I really think ever more than a physical journey, where it's a lot of people just don't understand. They'll notice the changes in you and they'll say like, "Oh my God, you look amazing." They don't understand that mental change that's happened as well, which is, you know, 100 times in my opinion more impactful and more important. What has this whole journey been like for you mentally?
Mentally, it take really high level of focus throughout the year. Like this prep 2022, a lot of people know, like people that know me, keep saying like, "Oh, you've been focusing all year round for this. You work so hard for that," but they don't know that I have always been like that since the first year I started bodybuilding. It's a lot because that like I moved here. Well, little more story to my background. I came from Hong Kong, so I moved across the country just 3 years ago. So they only know me for a few years, and like I started it way before this. I was already training like this when I was 18, and I'm 31, so it's 15 years.
Can I just say your English, like it's very, very good for someone who moved over. Like I could barely pick up something on it where I was like, oh, she might not be like born in the U, but like it's very, very good. So I will give you that because I've had some other guests on where it's not as good. But yeah, it's like I didn't even really notice until like a few minutes in talking with you. So that's Hong Kong. That's the first person that we've ever had from Hong Kong on the podcast. So hey, we have
That's
first
it.
first for everyone right there. So what's the bodybuilding atmosphere like in Hong Kong as opposed to the US? Because I think the US has a little bit more bodybuilders here than maybe like in Hong Kong. But what is that whole atmosphere like over there when it comes to women with muscles and working out and all that stuff?
Try not to be negative about it because I had a really, really hard time being a bodybuilder in Hong Kong. I had no respect. I would train so hard. I had a full time job that's 8 to 10 hours a day, 6 days a week, and I had to train 5 o'clock in the morning, 3 hours, like include weight training and cardio. I had to get it done before I even go to work, and I would work 10 hours a day, and nobody appreciated it, like because the beauty standard in Asia, in most Asia cities, I wouldn't say all over, because the bodybuilding community in Korea is pretty advanced, but in Hong Kong, I wouldn't say so. It's still behind, I would say. As far as I know, there's two woman bodybuilders. The other one, her name is still fine. I know her, and she lives in Atlanta, Georgia. So both of us in the U.S. And I don't know any other female bodybuilder right now that are from Hong Kong. So it's still behind, and it's politic. It's politic. Like the judge, they favor their own people. It's like that, and nobody was ever supportive. They're very judgmental. I never had sponsor. Just really, really hard.
I've heard that a lot, especially about like Brazil competitions where they favor the Brazilians a little bit more. So yeah, I've heard stories like that as well. But yeah, that's great. What was that sort of culture shock like when you came here, where it seemed like it's a little bit easier to be a bodybuilder here? Was that just weight off your shoulder, literally and figuratively?
I just feel like people talk to me, people see me in a whole different way. I feel like I was more respected, and I just never felt better.
What's the reaction that you get? Because it's like let's be honest, you're not the average looking woman. If you were to walk out, dressed the way you are right now, I like to have it be like it's like a mini celebrity basically, where it's human nature when you see something that's not the normal, just be like, oh wow, that's fascinating. What has that been like for you, and has it gotten easier for you as you've gotten more and more into this sport? Just sort of realize that like, hey, I am going to draw people's attention.
So when I noticed I was getting the attention from the US, from the Americans, was actually when I lost my job in 2019. Pandemic hits Hong Kong, lost my job, and then I started Her Biceps as a webcam site for female bodybuilder. And most of my fans are from the US, and I had people that were supporting me are from the US. And I noticed that I had a market in the US. Yeah. And when I first got here, I actually lived in LA. Now I live in San Diego. First, you know how people live in LA. They just talk to everybody. Like, everybody talk to everybody like if they're friends, if they're friends, and I get a lot of compliments. It was very flattering.
Small world. I'm in Minnesota, but my little brother lives in San Diego. He is currently at home right now for the holiday season. He's going back to San Diego on Sunday. But yeah, there are quite a few bodybuilders in San Diego. I'm coming down to visit him. Probably sometime this spring or summer. So maybe I'll run into some of the bodybuilders there. I don't want to get embarrassed at the gym though, because that's what's going to happen. I'm just going to be like, okay, this is ridiculous. Like this is BS. But I mean, this is so much more like we talked about before, it's so much more than just the working out and the posing. I mean, one of the big things that we talked just briefly about is the nutrition. What was that like going from anorexia to then going to a sport where you are required to eat so much food?
So when I first moved out, I didn't compete like right from the start. Obviously, it took me. I started bodybuilding. I wouldn't say I started basic weight training, cardio, in 2009, and I wanted to compete like 5 years down the road, and I didn't have the knowledge, and even the coach that I was hiring, they couldn't prep me on stage. Um, so sorry, what was the question?
Oh, so what was that like going from, that to going from anorexia to like now, like what you're eating right now? I mean, you are just probably just stuffing food down. What
So
is that
yeah,
like going from
okay.
those extremes?
My very first competition was in 2018, and I did figure, so I didn't have to eat a lot. And the fact that I wasn't eating, my body was not used to utilize a lot of carbs, so I wasn't eating a lot. And the most part that I struggle a lot when I started bodybuilding, um, being recovering from anorexia, was doing the slow intensity cardio. And it was so hard for me to understand, like, how does that even work? Because back in the day when I was anorexic, I did a lot of running, and I did 2 years of Muay Thai. The first couple of years when I started bodybuilding, I was also doing Muay Thai. It was just very intense, right? I felt great because I could eat and I could just burn it off with the cardio. And then later on, like, even for the first 10 years, I couldn't understand, like, how does that slow intensity cardio help me? I thought people were just being lazy, not trying their best. So I still rep. So I was never doing, like, I never did great in my past contests. And it was until, trust me, it was until 2 years ago, I was finally convinced the slow intensity cardio was going to maintain the size and maintain my gain while trying to get down my body fat.
How long did it take you to finally look at your body shape and be like, okay, I am not built for figure?
It was when I was competing figure already. I knew I didn't have the structure for it, but I didn't have the muscle maturity or the size to move up to woman physique or bodybuilder. I knew it because I don't have small legs. my arms and legs are short. I'm very stocky. I could never do well in figure.
Yeah. No, that's why, like, yeah, the moment that I heard you say that you did figure, I was like, okay, that must have been a sight to see Marilyn doing figure here because yeah, you definitely, I mean, if there was a body type for physique and body, I mean, you absolutely have it. And how long did it take for you to put on that size where you could eventually feel comfortable stepping on bodybuilding stage?
I didn't compete in women bodybuilding until 2020. So it's been a long time. And I never used to like or appreciate bigger women competitors. And it really took time for me to think, okay, that's attractive. For me to accept like being bigger and still being feminine. It really took me time.
Is that hard to balance? Because some people do struggle with maintaining the femininity while putting on the size, or is that something that it hasn't been that hard for you to sort of balance?
It's hard because like some people like to take short path. They like, bodybuilding's not neutral, right? And a lot of them like to take shortcut and take a lot of gear, and that's the main reason why they're losing their femininity. So in the first 7 years, I was training natural because at the time my coaches, they were from Hong Kong, and they didn't know what a woman should be taking, so they didn't want to take the risk. They didn't want to be responsible for it. So they told me that I could compete natural. I believed in it. So I was training natural for 7 years. It was hard. The progress was really slow, but then I built the will strength from when I was training natural all the way till here, and that's why I'm still very feminine and doing female bodybuilding division.
Well, thank God you're Hong Kong coaches because I've heard stories where like, yeah, they just put them on some of the stuff that's similar to the men. And it's like, why are you doing that? Like that's just a disaster waiting to happen. So good for those coaches at least that there's some of them out there because I've heard some other stories that just make me just cringe a little bit. But I mean, this is also a sport where you gotta get up on stage and pose in front of people in a bikini. Basically, was that something that you were always comfortable with, or is that something that you just slowly had to like build up the confidence to do?
I do actually, yeah, I do have to build up my confidence to do it and try to understand, like, because when I first competed in bodybuilding, I didn't understand, like, why are we putting on all this fake tan and like posing trunk and bikini, just pose.
First of all, can you imagine how much tan I have to put on? I would have to put on at least 10 coats to even look somewhat resemblant. It's horrible for me. I would bankrupt myself with the amount of tan that I'd have to put on. So at least there's
Holy
that. Yeah.
crap.
I'm well.
Yeah, I heard
I
it.
got my
Well,
I got my
I'm
Norwegian white
sure.
basically. That's what it is. So it's just the pure. I reflect off the sun basically.
Holy crap. Well, I just need two coats. That's all. Because I'm darker,
Yeah.
obviously.
Well, I've always said that the only benefit about being this pale though is that if you look super good this pale, then you know that you're going to absolutely kill it with the tan though. That's how you know that like you're really doing a good job is if you look like super in shape even like that. But yeah, this just so stepping on that stage, is that something that you still suffer with or because you've done it so many times is it one of those things where you're just like, okay, it's just business as usual?
Yeah, I definitely get more comfortable in it, but still in a 1 minute free posing, because last time I competed, I was doing amateur, right? So the free posing was 1 minute, but you're gonna practice a lot to be smooth, to coordinate from one pose to another. That I still need to work on it.
And I mean, you got to compete at the Olympia. Now it was the amateur, but I mean, that's still the Olympia. What was that feeling like for you?
Um, it was when they call my name. I was the overall winner. I was very emotional. Like I thought I wouldn't cry because I competed so many times. I thought like I'm the kind of person I don't get overwhelmed or too excited. My emotions are always like in the balance point. So I know myself. I didn't expect myself to be emotional because of that, but I did get emotional because it really took me a long time to get there. And then it was only after I got pro card, I went back to reality. I understood like, okay, I won this show, but I beat a bunch of amateurs, right? I'm still an amateur in a way. You know what I mean? I haven't done a pro show yet.
Oh yeah.
That's why I felt.
Oh, so they did. I was gonna say, because if they didn't give you your pro card after winning the amateur, I was like, that should definitely be. But I mean, that's great. So what are your plans looking like for this coming year now?
So I plan to take the entire 2023 off. I do need to get bigger. I wasn't the biggest girl in Olympia amateur or the national. I did two shows, by the way. At national, I came second up on heavyweight bodybuilding. I beat a bunch of amateurs by the details and conditioning, but I still need to get bigger, and I do want to get bigger.
I was gonna say your conditioning was pretty insane. I've seen some of the videos that you posted like right before when you were like a day out and stuff. And yeah, it's you definitely brought it, and that's great. Have you always been easy to come in super conditioned, or was that something that you just had to learn over time? Because I've don't even get me. I've talked to some of these freaks on here. I call them freaks because those are the ones that like they can just not like prep for like a couple weeks and then they get super lean tent, and I'm just like, send me that magic or whatever the heck you're doing. But have you always been really easy to get like super lean, or has that been a process?
So here's one thing I always want to talk about. It's when people say conditioning. It's not just the amount of body fat that you have or how low your body fat is. It's the structure. It's the density. Listen, it's the density. And density, drugs cannot help you get that. If you look at the most dense female bodybuilder this day, we have Michaela Acock. I even comment on her Instagram, and she knows that she's the most dense female
She's
bodybuilder.
just she's just concrete, basically. That's what it is. Yeah.
Yeah, she's like sculpture, and that's bodybuilding. Bodybuilding is like an art, and it's like sculpture. That's what we are all trying to do: hard, dense, and dry, shredded. And that's her. And you don't see her like you don't see a lot of Michaela. She's one of the kind. So density is everything. Density on top of like your body fats. If you're that dense, I'm just saying, like you don't have to be really dry to see the definition. So when you say somebody only takes few weeks to prep for a show, well, maybe he or her been training for years. Muscle memory is real.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean?
I'm talking about those genetic freaks where you just look at them and you're just like a Michaela Acox, where you're just like, God, give me some of your genetics. Just
She trains really freaking.
oh no, I know, but like you still need to have that background too. Like I could train just as hard as she does, and it's not going to be this. It's just genetics, but yeah. Oh my God, she trains. The videos that she posts on her Instagram, it's so inspiring to see. Like yeah, she absolutely works her butt off. Yeah, she is the definition of just hard work. But you just look at that and you're just like, God, if I just had that sort of that back and those, I mean, yeah, she is just absolutely shredded. But I mean, going into this is a whole completely new year and everything, and the sport is all. Whoops, here. My microphone. See, that's going to be on the blooper reel. My microphone falls down every once in a while. It's always I don't know how to do that, but okay. So 3, 2, 1. This is also a sport that's always ever evolving. I mean, from the time that you got started in this sport, I mean, I bet it has changed drastically because it's one of those sports where every year, they add something in or they just mix things up a little bit. What have been some of the biggest changes you've seen in the sport since you've started?
So I can only speak for my experience because I wasn't born here. When I started in 2009, we didn't even have like figure or woman physique. Uh, we have two woman divisions, which is bikini and woman bodybuilder. So when you look at the woman bodybuilding divisions in Hong Kong, you see all different shapes and forms of women and compete in one division. It's like you can easily tell someone should have been figure or woman physique, but they're all in the same class. So going from that to now, we have, I think in women, we have six different divisions. We have figure, we have fitness, bikini, wellness. Wellness comparatively new. Woman physique and bodybuilder, right?
Yep.
So it changed a lot since then.
I mean, yeah, I do love that they're having more divisions too, because it's like not everyone fits into just the bikini shape or the bodybuilding shape. I mean, there is a lot in between that, goes on as well. But I mean, you talked about cardio, and that's the bane of my existence. What is your relationship with cardio better now, or is it still one of those things where like I've rarely talked to a bodybuilder that really enjoys cardio?
You talk to bodybuilders that really enjoys cardio.
I said rarely. So I think it's been like one.
Okay,
I think it's
really.
yeah. I was gonna say it's been like one or two, and I wanted to like tell them
I
like
gotta meet her.
I know I
Who
want to
is
tell them like
this?
I know a therapist that you can talk to and get rid of your problems because if you like cardio, and I think both of them they were like ex sprinters though too, so I think they just have that background in it. But otherwise, yeah, I have not talked to one that enjoys it.
Oh, thanks God you tell me that. Like I figured that would make sense if somebody used to be a sprinter or track runner or marathon runner. That would be easier for them. So do I hate cardio? No, actually, I enjoy doing that because I enjoy more intense cardio because I like the endorphin that kicks in. It's like the more intense, the more endorphins you get. So if you did like just say sprinting or on the bike, the upright bike with the resistance, like the endorphin you get afterward, it's like you can see the world. Like it's you can't describe it. It's like everything's crystal clear. Like everything you didn't understand before, you get the answer. It's like get smarter. It's incredible.
Oh, I've had times even on my walks where yeah, you just clear your mind and then all of a sudden you get these. I now luckily I don't bring my phone with because I might be like tweeting some weird crap or whatever like that. That people are like, "What is he even talking about?" Because you're just like figuring out new stuff. But yeah, it is just to clear your mind and get that endorphin rush, especially where I'm at right now with the days how they are right now with the cold and stuff. But yeah, everyone, yeah, it's that's the biggest thing about cardio. That's the one thing that I enjoy. I don't go for runs. I go for walks after I work out, and those are just absolutely great for me. But the one thing that isn't talked about as much as it should be is how important sleep is when it comes to
Yeah.
just health and fitness in general. And a lot of people just don't understand that. What does your sleep look like? Because I've talked to some people that, they can function off of 4 hours a night. I've talked to some people where if they don't get 10 hours, they're basically going to maybe murder someone. Where do you fall when it comes to sleep? Because especially as you get closer to a show, sleep becomes so much harder.
That's right. That's right. At the national and Olympia amateur too. Like one day out, I just couldn't sleep. I could only get 3 hours sleep, then I would wake up. Then I went back to sleep after 2 hours. It was hard and lacking of sleep. Like different people respond to sleep differently. Some people lose weight by not getting enough sleep, and for me, I get watery. I get bloated, and that affects me a lot. And yeah,
Do you do
anything, any
no problem?
time before starting from 10 weeks out, I had to sleep 16 hours a day because for my body to get 16 hours a day.
Are you serious?
Oh,
Wow.
sorry, 12 hours, 10 to 12
Oh,
hours,
I was gonna say 16 hours. I was like, good God.
10 to 12
Yeah.
hours, 10 to 12 hours. Because like as I told you before, my body is not used to utilize a lot of carbs. So when I start cutting, I would go. I started going zero gram of carbs at 6 weeks out. I think this prep. So I didn't have the energy to train heavy. I still have to do a lot of cardio. So sleep is the only energy source that I get from. So I need to sleep a lot.
How early into your prep or how late into your prep do you stop lifting heavy? Because like you said, you have that background in powerlifting as well. Do you like as soon as you begin a prep, do you stop lifting heavy or do you like slowly wean off of it? Where do you fall on
That's a
that?
really good question. That's a really good question because, like, I had so many coaches before. Right now, I have Shelby to take care of my diets online. I've been working with Shelby since 2018, and right now, my coach that take care of my training is Chris Cormier. And his approach in training it's never heavy. But in my belief system, and he knows it, he's that I'm stubborn. Um, I think at some point you cannot just lift heavy the entire prep, especially if you want to get bigger. So I kind of have to figure this out myself because he does not like any compound movement or heavy stuff at all. So I would say any time before 10 weeks out, I can still push heavy.
Yeah.
10 weeks out.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we've had some people that yeah, as soon as it goes, it's they stop doing it or they try to maintain it as long as possible. But yeah, I've rarely talked to people that really do try to, maintain it as long as they can, but I mean, this is also a sport that you're judged by other people. I mean, it can be down to human error. I mean, the judges, it just depends on maybe what look they want and how do you deal with that emotionally and mentally, just realizing that, like, hey, there's so much that can happen on a show day.
Yeah, that's right. I heard that people that said it really depends on what the judge won that day. It sounds ridiculous, right? But I guess they might be right.
Mm.
I haven't done a pro show yet, but I think the IFBB standard is a lot higher than NPC. I've only done NPC shows so far. I find the judging was pretty fair as long as some judges are in the judging panel. The one show that I wasn't really happy with was Arnold Amateur. Um, so, they already took out woman physique and woman bodybuilding this year. And when I did Arnold Amateur on March this year, 2022, I came in third. Like, I'm a good competitor. If I lost and I knew why I lost, and my conditioning was the best. My coach Shelby Stone would agree, and a lot of people would agree because I posted a comparison picture on my Instagram. And the girl that came in second, I don't have problem with her. Like I still talk to her, but she was a little less conditioned than I was.
Yeah.
And they could argue they want a smaller girl for woman physique. The girl that took first, she was smaller, she was very conditioned. That's fine, but I should have come in second.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And Arnold isn't like the standard for Arnold competitions. They don't like big women.
Yeah.
And the judging panel that day was bikini girl. I'm
Yeah,
not gonna
that's not a good setup for me. Yeah. Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And how do I deal with that mentally, emotionally? It's hard because, like, how much money, time, health we invest into bodybuilding. Bodybuilding can eat your life financially, mentally. Do you know how many bodybuilders miss out a lot of stuff like dinner, Christmas dinner? Some of them like even stay single
Yeah.
to be like really focused, invest themselves into the sport.
Mhm.
And we spend how many time on stage? Like 5 minutes.
Mhm.
And the results is the answer is depends on what the judge won.
Yeah.
Like that doesn't sound fair. It's hard. So I would just keep improving like I always been doing. Because it took me 15 years to get a pro card. I already get over it, really.
Mhm.
Even if I didn't get my pro card, I would still get bigger.
Yeah.
That's my goal. My goal is to keep improving, get bigger,
Mhm.
get better.
That is a great goal. And I mean, on top of that, one of the hardest things in this lifestyle is posing. And I don't care what anyone says. I've heard this a million times that for a lot of these competitors, it's harder than your nutrition. It's harder than the working out. What has your relationship with posing been like?
My posing is actually pretty good because it really depends on how you train as well. Like if you do a lot of time under tensions, isometric stuff, isometric,
Yep.
it's like you pausing on half rep through.
Yeah.
So if you do that a
Look at
lot,
look at look at those guns, everyone. That's just absolutely insane, Marilyn. Good God.
that's an off-season gun. So
That's off. Yeah,
it's
that's
all
still
right.
pretty
It's all
damn
right.
good. Good God. Yeah, that's ridiculous. Yeah.
It's all right. So if you are used to do a lot of time under tension, the pausing stuff, posing is not hard for you.
Mhm. Yeah. Out of the poses that you do, what is your favorite pose and what is your least favorite pose?
My favorite would be absent thigh.
That is the first. No, that is the second time on this entire podcast. You're gonna be like my 500th guest. That is the second time we've had someone say ab and thigh is their favorite pose.
Yeah,
That
because
is That's normally everyone's least favorite. But yeah, your abs are ridiculous. So yeah, that's
my
probably
abs, like if you like you're on my Instagram, right?
yeah.
You've seen my abs workout, right? So I
We'll
can
have
do
a photo of her abs while she's talking right here just to prove it to everyone. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
so I can do that the dragonfly.
Mhm.
So my abs is pretty good. I have really good core strength, and my legs is one of my best body parts. So that's why it's my favorite pose.
What's your
And my
least
muscle control is pretty good
What's
too.
your least favorite?
I would say back pose because like I said, my back still need a lot of size, width, and details. That's why I don't like it.
Well, I'm going to play a complete idiot right now. And you mentioned time under tension, and I like to pretend that I've never heard that before because everyone has their own sort of definition of time under tension. I mean, it's the same basic things, but some people treat it differently. If I were to have never heard time under tension, how would you explain time under tension to me?
So I would say time and attention start from one. Can I say 1 second? 1 second wouldn't say time and attention. It's slow, negative, and the pausing to like say you're doing hack squat, right? So you want slow and negative. So it can start from 2 to 5 seconds. 5 seconds is really, really slow. You feel like you're in outer space. Five is really slow. And the slower it gets, the lighter weight it goes. Like you can't like unless you're really advanced lifter, you can still go heavy with time under tension like Jordan Peters. Jordan Peters coach Michaela Aycock. So yeah, some from 2 to 5 seconds and you pause at the bottom without locking out and you drive back up. And you the whole time the tension is consistent. That's why you don't lock out. If you lock out, like you completely let go, like if you do a bank rep, we call a bank rep, you're not keeping the tension consistent. It's like a resistant band. Everything's constant. That's how I would explain time and attention.
And it's way more effective. I don't care what anyone says. Doing time under tension, it's you get so much more of a burn normally than lifting. I mean, and there are other ways to do it too. And it's hard just because you can have time under tension on, let's say, your back or your arms, but doing it for your legs, you might not be able to have it. It just depends on muscle groups as well. So it's not a whole one size fits all thing where like if just because you have it for one body part doesn't mean you have it for another. So it's a lot of work. But once you develop it, I sort of like to compare it to like riding a bike, where it's like once you learn how to ride a bike, it's impossible to really unlearn it where it just becomes so much easier for you. But yeah, I mean, this is just it's just so fascinating for me, especially the off season for bodybuilders, because a lot of people don't understand like you work your butt off to maintain that or to get that look on stage, but it's not a sustainable look. How do you deal with the off season? Because a lot of bodybuilders I talk to, and when I say a lot, I mean basically every single one of them struggles with that off season. How do you deal with the off season?
Luckily, I'm also a powerlifter, so if I have off like if I'm competing for another sport in my off season, it helped me stay goal. You know, what I mean, it helped me stay on track.
That's
And I you have to get used to the puffy looks in the off season. If you always think that's fat, that you're not going to be happy with yourself. You have to get used to it.
it's one of those things where I think as you do more and more shows, it might get a little bit easier, but it's never gonna be like super easy for a lot of people, just because like yeah, you get so used to that look on stage, and you get so used to as you're slimming down, just sort of just seeing the body develop, and then it's slowly just got put on more size. But do you have any lifting goals when it comes to powerlifting? Are there any lifts that, or are there any weights at lifts that you're trying to achieve, or are you just right now just trying to see where you go in your journey?
Definitely do. And I lock every single workout, and obviously my powerlifting record as well. So my right now my bench is 225, which is two plates, just for single. For rep PR, I have rep PR and single PR. My rep PR for bench is 200 for 5 reps and 195 for 9.
For
I'm trying to
for
break
five
that.
foot for 5'3", that's pretty incredible. I just gotta say that's insane.
Yeah, it's great. Well, my bench is what the weakest up to 3. So my deadlift, my single is 190 kilo raw. What for single? And my rep PR for conventional deadlift was 355 for 12 and 315 for 15. And my barbell back squat was, I don't remember the single, um, but for rep PR was 315 times 13. Perfect form. So I'm trying to break that.
That is insane. Well, in the gym bro and me's got to ask, what do you do for arms? Because we saw the arms. Like, what do you do for them? Because the gym bro and me, that's like all we do is we try to improve arms. What do you do for that? Because you do have really great arms. What do you do for arms?
Um, uh, just barbell, straight barbell curl with time and intentions and focus on the contractions, and you don't lock out at the end. I still do heavy. So it's like what you said earlier, once you learn how to ride a bike, you can never unlearn that. So if you used to train in that way with the time and attention without locking on stuff, you can still lift heavy in a long way. But you have to really, really consistent with it.
And don't forget your triceps, everyone, too. That's the one thing I always say. That's the one body part where if you have nice triceps, it makes the arm look so much better than it actually is because it's like 75% of it. So that's my advice out there as well. But I mean, when we do, well, I was going to say when we do have you back on in a year, but yeah, we'll probably have you back on. I mean, I don't know because it was, just great talking to you. But on top of that, I mean, this is going to be edited out because I had a tongue tied and twisted moment right there. I was too focused on arm workouts and stuff like that because that is, to me, that's the one body part that I'm trying to grow, the most. But when it comes to, just dealing with people in the general public, there are a lot of misconceptions about the sport too, and a lot of stereotypes about, bodybuilders. What is probably the biggest one that you run into, and what do you try to like disprove it? Because unfortunately, like for all the good moments that people have with a lot of people, there are some bad ones too, and a lot of people just don't have a good understanding of this sport.
Um, Understanding of a sport, like the stereotype. Can you tell me what a
Oh,
stereotype of a
like all they do is they work out and all they do is stuff like that, or like, oh my god, they're just ridiculous that they're so self-absorbed and stuff like that. And it's like, no, they're not. They just like to maintain a good look and stuff like that. That's another thing too. But like you said, a lot of competitors do sacrifice a lot of like personal life and events like that for this sport. But I think there's just a stereotype that like all these people must do is work out all the time. Well, it's like, no, you can do it if you work out for maybe an hour or two a day. You can get to it in really good shape.
Yes, it depends on your goal. If your goal is not to be a competitive bodybuilder, you can definitely just say half an hour cardio a day, an hour of weight training. That's totally fine. But it's eventually it's down to a personal choice. And this is my passion. This is our passion. This is what we do. And well, they're right. Stereotype is right. Like all we do is train, eat, and slave. That's true. A lot of us are. And but what I can say is you you gotta have imbalancement to achieve mastery. You know what I mean? In everything you do, like the greatest scientists, they miss out a lot of stuff too. Like, why don't you talk about scientists,
Yep.
right? That makes sense. Like, if you want to be mediocre, go ahead,
Mhm.
but you're not going to be successful. Like, so who are you out here to talk shit about us? Like, who the heck are you,
Yeah.
right?
A lot of times, just people jealous because you're bigger than them and stuff like that. That's the main thing is that they realize that like, hey, these people can maintain this, but I couldn't. It's a lot of times it is people on that side too. So that's one thing that I hear, a lot as well. And lastly, if someone is just looking to just get started working out, what's the best piece of advice that you would give them? Because for me, a lot of times it's just go, because once you take that first step in the gym, it's hard to walk out without getting a workout in. Just going there is hard enough for some people.
Say if you're worried about like how people see you training or lifting weight, or if you're afraid people judging you, like how little weight you're lifting, or your form is not right, just take a time when the gym is quiet,
Yeah.
so you can really focus on yourself. That's first, and always focus on the form. Form is everything. Foundation is everything. Keep it simple. Don't reinvent the wheel. Keep it simple. Um, don't stick to machine work if you want to get bigger. I will always say that. Always. Um, always have a coach. Always have a coach. Yeah. To start off, that's my advice.
That is one of the biggest things. A lot of people do this without a coach, and God bless them. They try their hardest, but it's hard for so many people.
And
But
one more thing, most important thing, the one more thing, never ever jump right start into gear. Never
yes,
ever. You will never find your natural strength is if you do that.
there are some people that just do that right ahead, and like they don't even look like they're in shape, and they're on more stuff than some people that are like it's ridiculous. So yeah, always I try to bring that out there too. It's like try to find your natural limit before you start, trying with that, because you never know. I mean, that's just my opinion on it too, and I appreciate you for saying that. But again, Marilyn, I cannot thank you enough for coming on and sharing your journey. It was an absolute delight talking to you, and I
That's
look
what
I look forward to hearing from you again. And I mean, this was great. But again, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me again.
Absolutely. This is Ryan Johnson, DD on the spot, signing off. Have a great day, everyone.